Well, we're here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and it is time for our monthly sit down with Iowa Agriculture Secretary Mike Naig. Secretary, thanks so much for taking the time to visit with us here on National Ag Day of all days.
Yeah, absolutely. Always great to talk, and happy National Ag Day. And actually, it's Iowa Agriculture Week. And so it's a wonderful time to celebrate and recognize our hardworking farm families, but also the whole agriculture community that surrounds those hardworking farmers, and a time to remember and a time to really promote the fact with non-farmers that everyone benefits from a strong and growing agriculture. And that's not just true in Iowa. It's true, really, frankly, all around the world.
You know, and we have those celebrations usually around the first day of spring, around National Ag Week, National Ag Day, right before we're going into the fields. I mean, how important is it, especially now, to get that message across to the consumers? Because you see so much on social media. I know we've talked about this in the past, that people that just don't get it, that are spewing misinformation about what we're doing out there.
I think we try to take a bigger picture look here and say, look, it is okay. It's understandable even for people to have questions about water quality and about nutrition and about health and all kinds of issues that people want to know, and they have questions about what happens in agriculture. That's okay. Food's a very personal issue. It's a necessity. Water's an essential. And for people to have questions or want to know more about what that impact from agriculture is I think that's okay. But then we have to, and what we hope is that people are open to listening to and hearing us out on the truth, the facts, explaining what we do, how we do those things. And I don't think we should be defensive at all. I just think we should be open and very honest about all of our efforts to produce that safe, affordable, abundant food supply, and to also do the right things on our farms when it comes to conservation and water quality. There's a lot of great work happening. More needs to happen, but we got to maintain that trusting relationship between the farmer and the consumer. And a lot of work has been put into that over the years, and we need to continue to really focus on that and push hard to make sure that we're communicating with consumers.
And of course, as you mentioned, it's also Iowa Ag Week. And of course, we got to make sure we're sending out a lot of thanks to the people that produce all kinds of agriculture products in the state and do everything they can to help fuel us, feed us, and keep us clothed.
Absolutely. And again, we have a diverse agriculture here. Yes, we're known for those corn, soybean, pork, beef, dairy, eggs, but we also have a really growing and thriving and exciting specialty crop and direct-to-consumer sector. You and I have talked a lot about what's happening around Choose Iowa and all the great things, chooseiowa.com, where you can find the kind of diversity of everything from fruit and veg and flowers and beekeeping, milling, brewing, distilling, all those types of winemaking, all those types of things. But also, I think the calling card, if you will, the hallmark of Iowa agriculture has been around value-added agriculture. So taking those commodity crops that we grow so well in this state and turning that into high-quality protein or ethanol or biodiesel or bio-based chemicals and materials. That's really what makes us, I think, special, is that we take that commodity and we turn it into something of higher value. And that's certainly where we have to continue to look at going forward, is expanding that value add opportunity, expanding the diversity, and really connecting better with what people need here in Iowa, around the United States, and really around the globe.
And of course, with it being the 250th birthday of the country, it's even more important to highlight the impact that agriculture has had on growing this civilization here.
Absolutely. And we're really trying to put that theme together with ag, and certainly with Ag Week and our Ag Leaders Dinner that's coming up next week. We'll have an America 250 theme to it, but you're going to see this carry all the way out through county fairs and state fairs, the state fair, not state fairs plural, but and a harvest festival this fall. You're going to see us try to bring this America 250 concept together with food and agriculture. Look, you go back to the beginning of this country, things that set us apart. Of course, farmers, our founders, many of our founders were farmers. Many of the people that first picked up arms to go and fight for our freedom and to defend our liberty were farmers and rural people. And then you switch and you say, then the American farmer switched to sustaining this country. We couldn't be who we are as a country. You couldn't have American exceptionalism, American greatness, the ability to pursue the American dream, if you don't have a stable food and agriculture, a stable energy supply. Those things set us apart. And even we're seeing in the world today, there are places that do not have that kind of stability, don't have that kind of self-sufficiency that we do. really does set us apart. I just think it's important to remember that, both in the America 250 context, but also just in our daily lives, and certainly as we're talking about Ag Day and Ag Week.
All right, so then moving on, obviously we're in the middle to the end of March and the legislative session getting closer and closer to wrapping up, and we're through the second funnel now. What's the status of the Iowa Farm Act?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's we are in that second half of the legislative session, and certainly this is where the budget really starts to take shape. They now have the revenue estimate that they need to move forward in setting those actual numbers, and so you'll start to hear a lot more about that specifically. But there are still some very important pieces of legislation, policy pieces that are yet to be determined. The Farm Act is alive and well in both chambers, and we continue to work with legislators and stakeholders on moving that forward. So very optimistic about getting most of that done. In fact, maybe even add a few pieces to it. And then, of course, the other pieces that we know have been in the works, and that's the big pieces we talked about even coming into session around property tax reform, around enhancing property rights in the state. Those are yet to be finalized, but certainly that's the legislative process, that we're working through. And yeah, it's starting to. I think it'll pick up speed here as we come to the downhill run of the legislative session.
All right, and then moving on to things like E15. Boy, this last couple of weeks, we have definitely seen the fuel prices skyrocket. Even E85 has gone up. But, this situation with Iran and how everything's playing out with the oil markets, well, that really can help drive home that need for E15. And it would be kind of hopeful that Congress is paying attention.
Yeah, not to make light of a very serious situation from a national security standpoint in any way, shape, or form, but it is a reminder, and even it goes back to some of what was the origin. One of the original motivators for the renewable fuel standard to begin with was around trying to promote and improve and enhance and increase American energy production. And to me, that's all of the above. Yes, that's more oil and natural gas, but we can do this from a renewable fuels standpoint as well. And again, a supply chain disruption that affects oil prices, that then affects the price that Iowans pay at the pump, is exactly the reason that we should push for E15 year-round nationwide. We know the numbers. You save 10 to 15 cents a gallon when you're pumping E15 over E10. Why not apply those savings? That's important anytime, but it's certainly important right now as well. So continues to be, I guess we'll continue to call it a high level of frustration, or certainly we are motivated to try to see something happen at the congressional level, find the right vehicle to get some language moving to get that nationwide access. But also in the meantime, having to look at plan B, C, D, whatever it takes. And there's some other important biofuel news, the setting of the renewable volume obligation, the RVO numbers that need to come out of EPA. That is certainly one thing. And then, of course, we could end up with another emergency waiver that allows for year-round access to E15. That is a good thing in the sense that it does allow more access to E15, but it is not the solution. We must have that congressional action, change the federal law, and make this a permanent fix.
And that's what I was going to talk about next. President Trump's supposed to be having some big announcements this Friday at the White House as he celebrates agriculture there. There is hope that the RVOs are announced, but the E15 waiver now, of course, Iowa doesn't have to worry about that. We're that group of 8 Midwestern states that don't have to deal with that because we've already found a workaround to get that to happen. But it's interesting to see how much Iowa is still playing a part in that, obviously as the top biofuels producer in the country, but still wanting to make sure that access is available to everyone, even though we've already got it.
Yeah, cards up. We need to say that we would like to see access in places where there's a lot more, a higher number of gallons that are pumped into tanks, right? I mean, that's just the fact. Here we sit, 3.1 million Iowans, and we know, again, we're saving tens of millions of dollars a year in savings by pumping E15. Imagine what that could be nationwide. But really, this is about just providing that certainty all across the country, even in some larger states on the coasts, that could be using a lot more of this fuel. And as the number one producer, of course, that benefits us. Look, I've been through this so many times, but it's still true, and it just needs to be said. When you're using more ethanol, that is a signal to grow to the ethanol industry. When they grow, they need more corn. That sends a signal to the corn price, and also consumers are getting that benefit, and it's a cleaner burning fuel. You stack all those wins together, this is a no-brainer, but obviously we've got some work to do yet, and we'll be waiting to see. The president has been very supportive of E15. The administration is truly, I think, doing what they can, but obviously this needs to get through Congress.
And then before last time we talked, I should say, we were talking ahead of you possibly going to Mexico on a trade trip, and now plans changed in the light of how things were kind of panning out between when we talked last. You want to tell us what the update is, as it's been postponed a little while?
Yeah, unfortunately, we had to postpone that trade mission, that trip to Mexico that we were intending to take, and that came, if you'll recall, at a time where there was activity around cartels in the western part of Mexico, Guadalajara, that area, and many Americans, several Americans, had been stuck, unable to get back because of disruption in flights and those types of things. So, just truly out of an abundance of caution for the group that was traveling with us, we decided to postpone that trip. Canada and Mexico, our number one and number two trading partners, critically important. We're very disappointed that we were not able to make the trip at this time because, of course, the thinking about heading into this year with the review of the USMCA, significant market for pork and corn and DDGs in particular, but really across the board. So Mexico remains an absolute priority for us. Unfortunately, weren't able to take the trip, but it's on the we're in the process of rescheduling, and we'll be getting back there as soon as we possibly can.
And you brought up USMCA, obviously up for renegotiation this year. I mean, as we look back on the last 5 or so years of it, is there anything that sticks out that we might need to change for agriculture, or also maybe reiterate is working for agriculture as these negotiations happen?
Yeah, I think from my chair, from our perspective here in Iowa, I think this works very, very well. But we have to recognize this, which is, hey, we're one part of this USMCA agreement. So you do hear things about automotive challenges, maybe some on the fresh fruits and vegetables side of things, dairy with Canada. There are irritants. But let me be clear about this. Every trade agreement, every trade relationship has irritants. But the point is that even as we dealt with things like Mexico trying to prohibit the importation of GMO corn, right? There's not enough non-GMO corn in the world to supply the Mexican market. The Mexican consumer can't afford to pay for it if they did try to create that market. And so we needed to bring resolution to that. And your ability to do that through the framework of a trade agreement is critically important. So very, very, very important that we have an agreement with U.S., Canada, and Mexico together. And there are irritants. They need to be worked through. But I would say largely for us, when it comes to pork and corn and DDGs and soybean meal, beef, turkey, these are very important markets for us, and we need to continue to push forward with that.
All right. And as we said, last week was the first day of spring, National Ag Day here today. But of course, farmers chomping at the bit to get going. And we know 26 is going to be something I haven't seen before, just like it is every year, I guess. You know, there's a lot of stressors out there. There's a lot of stressors about what could be going on this fall because of things happening right now. I mean, there's a lot of things that farmers are worried about. But as we're getting ready to get those planters rolling here very soon, what's something that you want those Iowa farmers to be thinking about as they get ready to plant?
Well, first of all, this is a time of year that we can be optimistic about. Everything's new, everything's greening up, everything's possible at the spring of the year. But we can't sugarcoat this situation. We're in a tough situation from an economic standpoint, and nobody wants payments from the government, but they are sometimes necessary. And in fact, I think we need to have a serious conversation about what more should be done to help farmers, especially with the increased disruption here of late in terms of fertilizer prices and energy. But what's important, I think, right now is to remember that nobody has to go through things alone. There is stress in the farm community, and that there are resources. And it's okay to talk to somebody. It's okay to reach out. I would encourage folks to do that. If you need to talk, there are many, many ways to do that. One of the things that we like to promote, because it's been around, it's a good resource, and that's the Iowa Concerns Hotline, 800-447-1985, 800-447-1985. People that know how to talk to farmers. And I think that's important. So if you're feeling additional stress, if you're worried, concerned, having trouble focusing on what you're doing, this is a time to reach out and talk to somebody. So I want people to keep safety top of mind and mental health top of mind.
All right, Secretary. Well, who knows? By this time next month, we may be talking to you in the tractor going to planting corn right now. So appreciate you taking the time to visit with us though today.
Absolutely. If the weather holds, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that's true.